Thank you all for testifying today. I want to be really clear as well. I haven't heard any talk on this side of the aisle about default, wanting to default, using default as leverage. That's a straw man. The only people I've really heard a lot about default from are on the other side of the aisle. So I just want to make that abundantly clear. And it reminds me of what now Majority Leader Reid said back in 2006. He's the one that was talking about default. He said, Americans know that increasing debt is the last thing we should be doing. After all, I repeat, the baby boomers are about to retire. Under these circumstances, any credible economist would tell you we should be reducing debt, not increasing it. Democrats won't be making arguments to support this legislation, which will weaken our country. Weaken our country. We're being asked to do what shouldn't be asked of us, to increase the debt to almost $9 trillion. So there's a lot of politics going on here, and what I'd like to do, and most of the questions I had to ask have been asked, so I'd like to just go over a couple of things to clarify. We've heard a lot of talk about the Bush tax cuts and the wars adding to our debt. And I was looking here at revenue as a percentage of GDP. And it's interesting that in the mid-90s, when taxes were higher, 1995, for example, revenue as a percentage of GDP was 18.4%. During the Bush years in 2007, after the economy recovered from 9/11, it was 18.5%. So the idea that revenue dipped significantly during the Bush years because of tax cuts is just not true. Sure, it went down after 9/11. I didn't see 9/11 labeled on this chart, Mr. Johnson, but I think that that is a critical part of the equation. The other thing that I would point out, the key change, and Majority Leader Reid referred to it, the key change has been demographics. We all agree we've spent too much in Congress, a lot of it long before I got here. But the issue now is not who spent too much. The issue now is who's willing to fix the problem and who's not. That's ultimately the issue. And we've heard a lot about a balanced approach. And we just had an agreement here in the House, in the Congress, that raised taxes. Now, from my calculations, before the taxes that were raised on the American people recently, a few weeks ago, we had a deficit of about $1 trillion. After those tax increases, we've got a deficit of about $1 trillion. Does anyone disagree with that? Mr. Casey, do you agree that it had no significant impact on our deficit?
I agree.
Mr. Hoagland?
I agree that the deficit for fiscal year 2013 will still be about $1 trillion.
Even after the tax increases?
Yes, but of course those tax increases phase in over a longer period of time.
If you take $60 billion a year and subtract it from a little over $1 trillion, you're still right at $1 trillion. Correct, Mr. Foster?
That's the simple math, sir.
Right. And Mr. Johnson?
No, Congressman. Look, the way that you discuss the budget and the way you argue about the budget is over a 10-year time frame. Those were insufficient, I agree, to completely address the budget issue. I supported larger, stronger strengthening of revenue. Not immediately, though. Phasing it in over time is the right way to do it. You don't want to shock the economy too much. Phase it in over 10, 15 years.
I'm running out of time. The bottom line is, I understand you look at things over 10 years, and we all know that in 10 years, there's no control over what's going to be spent and what's going to be coming in. But the bottom line is the tax increases we got with no cuts did nothing to impact the deficit of any significance. It's still about $1 trillion. You could say it's $910 billion. Okay, it's still about $1 trillion. The bottom line is we still are about $1 trillion in the red every single year. And I will be waiting with optimism to see the President's budget. Again, thank you all for coming today, and I
Yield
think that's
back.
all I have.
All
I
right,
yield back.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.